Okay, so what I'm going to do here is find the center. I don't have any of the fancy things you need to do, you know, the little plastic thingy. So I'm just using I don't know what they call that. My finger depth gauge. So I'm going to make a scoop. The key to the scoop is it is it's put on the lathe 5 times, 4 different. You turn it eccentrically once and on 4 different axes. And the idea I originally learned about it from Soren Berger more than 20 years ago. I don't know how long. And it was, I didn't like the way he did it very much. What he had done was he had made a vessel and a long handle with a slight cup at the end. And so I decided I wanted mine to be a little more exciting than that. And so I blew up the first one in the class. It's the only class I've ever taken. I blew up the one in the class, but I learned enough in the process to know how I wanted to work it in the future. So what I've done is found centers. I'm going to use a punch here to make it easy to find it once and get back in it again.
Osage orange?
Yeah.
How big's your blank, Anthony?
Say it?
How big's the blank?
It's okay.
How big's the blank? 2 by 2
it's
by
just
6?
shy of 2 inches by 2 inches by about 4 1/4.
How much do they cost if you break them, Ethan?
$65. It's not bad, is it? Oh, this is, there we go, we'll try it that way. Okay, sure everything's nice and tight. I'm using a step drive. One of the reasons I use a step drive is so that it will hold on an uneven surface. It won't mar up the end of my blank very bad. Of those ones that are passed out, 4 of them are turned but not I haven't finished the ends of them. There's a little bit of handwork you have to do at the end. I don't know if, those of you who know me, I don't like the idea doing handwork. Yeah, it's about 4 1/2 inches long. And so if I can, isn't that fun? So I try to avoid that whenever I can. So who has a special place, a special height they use their tool rest at? Anybody have favorites? And so it's something they ask me whenever I teach a class. So like right now, I'm close to ½ inch below. And I didn't pick that because I like it. It's just, that's how far I was able to get before I figured I had to do something or you were going to leave. And so here's real high. Yeah. So why was I talking about how high you want to put the rest? It was so that I could make an excuse for doing this. I'm getting ready to mark a circle on each end. And somebody's going to ask me, well, how big is that circle? And I'm going to, instead of answering, well, it could be anything. It's just wherever you like it. You know, you put your tool rest high or you put it low. Well, that's what this is too. I got to slow it down a little more. I'm getting drunk. Here we go. And so I really don't know how big that circle is. I just kind of picked it. I noticed that this is smaller than this, and so I made the circle a little bigger on this end so it'll match. Oh, left something out. I'm going to draw a line down the horizon here, right down to the middle if I can. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is mark where that line is on the end. Can you see that?
There you go.
Okay, I'm marking, so there's that line, right? I just drew down the horizon. Now I'm going to use a straight edge and draw between the center and that line, sliding all the way across. And so now I have intercepted the circle here and here. Do it on the other side. If I'd have thought about it, I'd have asked for a straight edge, but it's too late now. We're done. Okay. Now I'm going to use my punch here and mark the spots. I'm being real careful to get it exactly right, of course. It really doesn't matter, I don't think. Okay. I'm going to put it on the same way. This was the slanty end over here and the straight end over there. There we go. Okay. So what's the tensile or the impact strength of this?
Not much. Oh, great. Anybody want to trade tea?
Not now.
So what I just did was measured the diameter. That's the width of what's going to be the vessel. It's a round ball. This I can even draw elliptically, sort of. Good. And so, the handle is here, the vessel is here. Sorry. So, the basic idea of an off-center scoop I got from Soren Berger. 15 years later, after I had already redesigned it, and he ended up with what this is, I met Eli Avicera, and he was making a scoop, kind of like Soren Berger had demonstrated. A long, thin handle with a little hook on the end. And so I said, hey, yeah, well, I've seen one of those before, and talked about it and talked a little about the story. And he turned and looked at me. He said, yeah, I was the one who taught Soren Berger that. So I was I met him again this May, and I had some with me this time and showed it to him. He wasn't that impressed. He did have some of those with him, some of those real thin, long handles, and it had been broken in transit. He was trying to super glue and duct tape it together. So this is just a big cove. I like this because you don't run into stuff, but that's where I put my arm.
It is for you. It is for you.
You see, I need to lean on this. You know that, huh? I've turned some pretty soft woods doing this. Sycamore maybe is one of the softest. And if you squeeze too hard, see, like the next two times I put this between between centers, it's going to be across the arc. Right? It's going to be running from here to here, and so it's going to be an arc out there. And it's real easy to break that. One of the reasons I picked something like Osage orange You have a big Vic Mark chuck?
How do you know when you've gone far enough?
Say it?
How do you know when you've gone far enough?
It didn't break. Where I can see it.
Okay.
You can't see the shadow?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and it's just, I just make them all the way however I want.
Okay.
I don't have I have a basic type, but I don't, almost the only thing I measure are chess pieces. And I try not to make those. So that's, you know, one more. I think this is a little bigger diameter than I usually make.
Just a little more where I'll give you trouble.
Normally, you cut fast and sand slow, right? You run the lathe fast when you cut, but you run it slow when you sand. And this is the, what do you call that? The difference that makes the rule, or how do you say that? The difference that proves the rule, the example that proves the opposite that proves the case, has to go fast. Hurt your fingers a little. The exception that proves the rule. That's it, isn't it? Have to work it out. Well, that's the way it is. Okay, I'm moving it to the opposite side. Slow it down. Sometimes it's not very tight, right? If you tighten it very hard, you break the arch. And so this may slip. Try to avoid it. It might happen anyhow. You just make it a little tighter then. The other way, someone asked me how I knew when I was done making the arch. I turn the lathe off and take a look at it. It's one of the things I tell people that turn with me is the lathe never complains. You can turn it off as many times as you want. You have to ride the bevel, but you can't push on the bevel. A good way to test, to practice for it, is you get square stock, you know, like just waste wood, right? Like in classes I give people 2x4s cut in half, so they're 2x2s. And you don't round them. You turn your 5 basic shapes with the stock still square. And what it does is it teaches you to touch but not push the bevel. What?
I'd have to go home and try this tomorrow to give everything you did.
What I'm doing is finding that line I drew on there. And so it's worth, since this is such a pain to sand, it's well worth, see the little thingy there? It's well worth trying to get rid of most of that before you resort to sandpaper. Still got a little bit of a bump here, and you see this, I don't know what you call that, a little crease. We'll get rid of it. Good. Pretty good? Okay. Not usually so profligate with sandpaper. You ever hear that thing, you're supposed to use sandpaper like someone else is paying for it? You ever hear that saying? I was a poster child for it. When I was in high school, I had to buy my own sandpaper. The shop teacher, Shawnee Mission North, I don't remember if he charged you 15 cents or, I think it's probably 15 cents a sheet. And I was so stingy, I didn't want to buy it, so I'd run around the shop at the close of the day and find all the bits and pieces that were here and there. And I also had this idea that 80 grit sandpaper used a long, long time became 220. And it doesn't. But what I did succeed in doing was I'd wear all the sand off the sandpaper. And then it wouldn't sand anymore. I also had the idea that you cut fast, right? So you should sand fast too. Of course, that doesn't work. It just heats things up. And so I'd end up with these big stacks, wads of sandpaper, you know, I mean, foot tall, that didn't have any sand left on them. And that I was running at 2,000 RPM, and I had to have thick because it burned my fingers if I didn't. It was just a bad thing all around. Okay, so we're going to make a sphere here, and I think I've got it bigger than it's supposed to be. Let's see what we got here. It has to be able to fit in a chuck. There's 2 or 3 different ways. Well, that's pretty close. There's 2 or 3 different ways to hold it at the end when you make the vessel. And I'm going to do the fast one. It does leave a few marks. Two of the marks go away when you do your coarse sanding. Remember, yes, this is the one. This is what you get after you've done your turning, and you have a nib at the front, and you have to sand that off. And this chunk on the end, you can see it right here, has to be taken off. And so, these little marks, maybe you can't even see them. There's a little mark here and a little mark here, and those are from the chuck, and you have to take those off. Now, what you may be more obvious here is on the back side. There's also two little marks here and here, and I decided to leave those. I don't take those out because it's just more sanding, right? And so it looks kind of like, you remember the Starship Enterprise, the saucer at the back end of it had those two ports that were kind of triangular shaped. So these are Enterprise scoops. Okay. And so this is an approximate. I do it just for reference. You don't need to do it. This is, it's important to get this round, the ball round, because when you grab it in the chuck and start hollowing it, as you hollow it, you're making it round. And if the outside's not round and the inside is round, then you can see it. Sorry?
You're on center now?
Yes, I'm back to the original centers. See what we got. A few chips out there, we'll have to take those off. This is the approximate length of the vessel, but of course you never get to the ends of it, right? So the part that I'm cutting on is going to be significantly shorter than this. Good? Let me do that again. So I have the full diameter of the sphere here, right? okay? And this is how big the sphere is in the other dimension, but there's going to be some of the end of this sphere buried in this, and some of it's lost under this. So it'll actually be, it won't ever actually be that long that I'm cutting on. That's getting pretty close. It's a little cattywampus in a place. I still have a flat up here. Close. It's still a little flat this way. Trying to get that down as small as I can. When I try to mount it in the, oh God, I shouldn't say it that way. When I mount it in the chuck, you'll see what. Okay. So, there are 4 or 3 ways I found and used to turn the vessel on this. And by the turn the vessel, you have to turn it right there, huh? This is the fastest. If you're traveling somewhere, it's probably the easiest because you don't have as much stuff to carry around. The cup chuck works, but it's far more precarious than all the rest because cup chuck's grip is not as good as you might want it to be sometimes. The other one was the #1 jaws that go on the one-way chuck, the big stronghold chuck. That you get a rubber thick plastic tube, cut off lengths of it, split it, and then you can wrap it around those big long pin jaws they make and use that to hold it. And here's the third one. Now, so what I was telling you, why did I want to make this as small as possible? Well, it's going to determine how deep I can get this. And now you're going to wish you changed seats.
Oh well, it was a good life.
Yeah. Just hope it kills and doesn't maim. That's what I always say. Okay. So let's slow it down, see what happens. What do you think? I guess you can't talk about an airplane inventor because they'll always say, "Can it fly?" I'm sorry, go ahead. What were you saying? You were saying something, were you?
It's not scary yet.
Not yet, no. Actually, you don't have to go very fast down. When you are doing the off-center part, you do. But this is just regular roll. Still need a little more. You can't afford to have too many catches when you're doing this. And so I'm going to make certain the tool rest is a good height. I'm going to do a little more.
What tool are you using?
This is a 1/2 inch round nose scraper, and it's got that thing on it because early on in my career I would use this to cut the inside, the mortise for boxes, and I never quit doing it. I don't have any good reason to do it anymore, but it's just habit. All my 1/2 inch scrapers look like this. Now that, see, I've never knocked one out with a catch, but that was.
Following in this case.
In this case, yeah. This is what I normally use for in-grain hollowing. I don't use it much for cross-grain, which is what this is. But I don't have any bowl gougers that would fit in there. I will use a skew, do it right here, a little later. Use a skew as a scraper. Okay. I have a disc at home. It's made out of plywood, and I usually put 60 or 80 grit sandpaper on it, and that's what I would use to take this back off and the front, and I probably would take some of the width out of that. And then I have another disc that it's actually made out of an old wetsuit. It's neoprene. I glued hook and loop to it, and I put 120 on it or something, and you finish. Well, that's a stage that one's at. I've done the one I showed. I've done the coarse work, but I haven't done the neoprene. And you have to finish, I have to finish it with a file. You get down to your 120 grit, and no matter how good I do it, I end up still with slight facets. And so a file going across that cleans that, and then you can do your soft sanding.
Have you ever tried sizing these up at all, or have you always stuck to this?
Everyone says it. You'd have to start with foreknowledge. You'd have to plan it. And I haven't. Yeah. I mean, I didn't even measure the piece exactly. Start with. Any other questions? I finish them. I originally finished them with Mahoney's walnut oil, and now I use. It's a new tongue oil. It's kind of Odie's oil, and I really like it. I've just getting ready to start working on urushi. Urushi is a Japanese lacquer. It comes from the poison. It's sap from the poison sumac tree, and it you have to put it on in real thin coats, and with lots of humidity. You store it with lots of humidity and 70 to 80 degrees. And what happens is the poison sumac sap mixes with the oxygen that comes out of the water and air, and that's what cures it. And then it's benign. You can drink and eat out of it. It takes 20 coats. You had the real thin coats. If you leave a thick coat, the air doesn't get to it, it doesn't cure. And you don't want to drink poison sumac juice. And it turns out, we get the, in English, urusol, it's probably not pronounced right, is what the English word is, and it comes from the Japanese. And it turns out that poison ivy and poison oak are all the same material. The irritant is always the same. And so I haven't done it yet. I've got poison ivy in my backyard. We'll have to try it and see if it works.
You just crush the oils out of it?
Well, yeah, I wonder. The poison sumac tree, they cut these horizontal lines, or almost horizontal, not like a maple, but just horizontal, and then they spoon it out, filter it, do other things. I bought 100 grams of it about 8 months ago. I haven't had the guts to do it yet. yeah, I watched how it was done. You need, this kind of paper to do this and that kind of paper to do that, and you mix them in a little bowl, and yeah, it's kind of exciting. But I'll do it. Takes me a little while to get going sometimes.